Dan Crenshaw went on Fox News, spoke to Brian Kilmeade about corporations and their stance in regards to the Georgia voter suppression laws, because, corporations are on the side of the left. We always know this. This makes sense. But the Republicans are trying to position themselves as anti-corporate renegades. Let's see what tactic Dan Crenshaw uses in order to make that case.
Big tech. And they're already grabbing Wall Street. Wall Street saying, take me, I'm yours. I want to change gears and get your opinion on this because you tweeted something about it. United Airlines wants to get a little bit more woke. They want to go out and say that 50% of their new hires from here on in are going to be women or people of color. United Airlines is officially stating this. They're planning to train 5,000 new pilots in a new pilot training program by 2030, of which at least half will be women and people of color. What do you think about this idea?
Look, I think just about every passenger that gets on a plane thinks to themselves, I hope the pilot is qualified and can take off and land the plane safely. Look, if they want a virtue signal, that's fine. What really pissed me off about United was the way they lied about the election integrity reforms that we're trying to make in places like Georgia and Texas. They lied about it. They insinuated that these were voter suppression laws. And of course, that's not true. Clearly, they didn't read it. And again, they're venturing into territory that they don't understand. That they know nothing about, and in an attempt to what? This is what I call the phenomenon that's going on. It's progressive fascism, because what is fascism? Well,
yes,
it's the regimentation of the economy, of society, and it's the forced suppression of your opposition. That's what's happening right now. The Democrats have successfully captivated the institutions, pop culture, Hollywood, our education institutions, and now our corporations into their own woke agenda. This is fascism, right? And they use cancel culture as a tool to impose.
Pause it.
Or the Frankfurt School anti-Semitic myths is what Crenshaw's doing here. So I'd say Crenshaw's doing closer to fascism, but
yes.
Into their own woke agenda. This is fascism, right? And they use cancel culture as a tool to impose their fascism on us. And so they're always using this anti-fascist labeling against the right, but they're the ones who actually engage in the tactics. And it's time we expose that. That's really what's happening here, and we should see it for what it is. Look, if they want to hire based on quotas and virtue signal to us and imply that people didn't have these opportunities to begin with, fine, but don't lie about other policy. Okay, that's what I really have a problem with.
If Republicans don't unite, understand what you said is actually fact, not opinion, they're going to get steamrolled and lose everything. They did not have a bad election day. You did not have a...
Yeah, I had the thought where I said, why didn't he just go with totalitarianism or something like that? Something that could actually, in some way, maybe be able to fit into the square peg via the round hole that he's trying to use. Like it's wait, that's not right. But I digress. I mean,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the fascist label is so easily disprovable, especially when you have Dan Crenshaw, who pushes nationalist policies on a daily basis and racist policies at that. He's not even trying to make it make sense, is what I've decided. He's trying to muddy the waters on what fascism even means and retool what had been used in order to talk about the Trump era policies.
What I really enjoy about this clip is, and I don't know if he realized he did it or not, but this is a big step for them to realize this to begin with. So I'll give Crenshaw a little credit here. He quantified, or qualified, I should say, fascism that he's talking about as progressive fascism, meaning, I mean, if you have to do that, you're admitting that fascism is usually a right-wing thing.
Yes.
So he's just angry, really, that we're the real fascists here, and in my view, progressives are on to what we're doing, and they're trying to take what we've been doing and force it into their own agenda onto us. They've turned the tide here. They're using our own fascism against us now, and we can't let them do this.
What I find interesting about that clip, despite the fact that he pouts like, a child towards the end there for a full 20 seconds after he stops speaking, is that despite the new label that they're giving it, cancel culture, like the left is silencing us and, corporations are using progressive fascism, this kind of anxiety that the sort of post, World War II far right has about the, let's just put out there like the basic social liberalism that has taken over pop culture and has taken over, branding and marketing and ads and like music and just like, your workplace diversity as some kind of heralding of the end is as old as, as old as the far right. It's kind of what binds them all together. And them portraying it as though it's the, that corporation is doing what they're doing, whether it's United having some kind of training program aimed at getting more people of color or women as pilots is, all well and good. But this concern, this very, I would say Gramscian concern that they're losing control of the hegemony, put in conversation also with their attempts to disguise the fact that they're losing this demographic battle through these, regressive voter suppression laws that are going around the country, which Dan Crenshaw himself benefits from in the form of gerrymandering in his district, which looks, like the Sailor Moon fucking star, like I'm sorry, staff, right? Has anyone seen it? It was like a sickle. But hearing it together, like, yeah,
Brandon, that's your cue to pull up that Crenshaw map right there.
Like him just saying, like, we don't like we're fighting a two-pronged battle here. We're fighting the demographic war in the term of literal political vote by vote, district by district gerrymandering, and we don't like the fact that ability to obscure the fact, we don't like the fact that our ability to obscure the fact that we're losing that demographic battle, in the form of more people of color getting into positions of power, more people voting, more Latinos voting, et cetera, et cetera. We don't like that we can't disguise that in movie ticket sales, that we can't make like the latest PragerU Adam Carolla movie do as well as like some socially liberal movie like, Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four. And like, that's just their entire albatross, that they have all this power in the political field that, they have to defend, obviously, with a lot of, incredibly regressive laws. But even if they are capable of defending that, like, their seats, their faux 50% silent majority or whatever, they can't translate that into people buying their books. They can't translate that to people like watching their movies, and they'll never be able to do that, right? So the complaint that this is a leftist thing is just them trying to disguise what is largely just a practical appeal to people who look like them by companies, by putting them in their marketing as some sort of ideological thing distinct from capitalism is just, what they're always going to have to do, right? Because otherwise they're criticizing what they believe in.
They make it fascism. They have to label it as progressive fascism in order to hide their aggrievement that they can't be represented in those parts of like culture. I mean, fascism apparently this week is whatever you want it to be, just like infrastructure. That's what I'm getting out of these conversations.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, like fascism, they know on the far right, which is why they actively try to sow fascist language and, into modern discourse.
Well, they just don't want you to call it fascism.
Exactly, because they know the truth that fascism is the most discredited political ideology of the 20th century. You can't call yourself a fascist. And once people identify fascism in you and your ideology, most of them really don't like it. All they can really do is muddy the waters around what fascism is until, it becomes indistinguishable from what they're just calling republicanism or like MAGAism or Trumpism, because they know that if it becomes identifiable as fascism, what they get is what happened between the first march for the right and the second march from the right. It goes from like a bunch of people coming to very few people coming, and then hundreds of thousands of counter protesters.
Right. That's a great point. And to add to that, the word they try to, they do know that fascism is a word that is not good for them to use to describe themselves. So they're trying to take back nationalism or call themselves nationalists. Because, that means they just love the nation. They just love the nation. Who doesn't love America?
Yeah, I like Brendan's point, because all this, whining they're doing is basically just to maintain a cultural gerrymander that they've been afforded by the major media institutions in this country for far too long on all sorts of issues. And they've got a good foothold. Dan Bongino and Ben Shapiro just own, trending on the biggest propaganda machine in world history.
Right.
Yeah, but the truth is you can you can maybe get enough viewers to believe far right, nonsense to be the highest watched news program in America, because people don't really watch news here. But you'll never be able to like have a major blockbuster or a watch television show or any kind of, or like a best-selling book that your super PAC didn't buy yourself. It's just the nature of the beast. A lot of these grifts are interpersonal, or they only can sustain you artificially with the help of billionaires.
And they
Right.
want
I
to
think-
make the conversation about culture, and yet they have an inability to access that culture, and that's what they can, how they can paint their aggrievement. Go on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, culture obviously has a feedback is in a feedback loop with politics and voting and et cetera. But that feedback loop has been heavily altered by our gerrymandering as well. So it's not as though this is not a key to them gaining or solidifying more power. So like this anxiety, I would say, from a practical standpoint, is warranted. But a lot of these people who are engaging in this kind of discourse are just like, they personally want to be able to sell a book or get a date or have like, a large audience of sycophants who don't, also contain a bunch of people who just watch them to make fun of them.